Yo, what's up everybody? Genghis Drop here for feedback sessions. Today, the show is from Sike. His shows are always hype, so this is going to be a great one today because we'll be taking a look at his Open Round 2 submission for the Gloving for Charity comp, hosted by You Got Moves Ice Cream Teddy. Quick rundown of this episode. We're going to have his show beautifully isolated in its entirety, showcased here. Then we'll check out my first impressions to it, to kind of get a quick overview on it. Keep it going by diving into the intentions of the show, which was, one, that he had some wacky things that he threw in at the intro and outro. We'll break down and see the positives and negatives behind that. And secondly, this show was thrown for the GFC comp. So we'll break down how he scored and how to predict how to improve for the score for that card. Lastly, we'll do a deep dive into the show for some general overall feedback that I'd like to add. And then we'll leave with a repeat of the show itself. You guys hyped? I'm hyped. Now let's watch that first impression. Yo, so this is my first impression watch. I think it's important to watch things everywhere. And I wind up watching a lot of videos on my way to and from work, and right now I'm just at a park and this is the first time I'm watching a video. So you get to see this really good walk. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. We're getting cloudy for now. Oh, that's alright. I can still understand it again. Oh, that's nice. It's red. Oh, that is probably going to get a good one. That's good. Oh, that's pretty high. Pretty good conditioning. And I'm curious about why your thumbs are green. Ooh, okay. Pretty hard effect. Nothing right there. Wide right there. What makes it not doing anything happening? Like that was great. That was awesome. Okay. So, you actually did really lead up to that well. GFC Open 2 round, so I'm gonna start looking at the scorecard one more time, and you did pretty good. Honestly, I think that was like at least hit the difficulty of concepts pretty well. Maybe about a 7 or an 8. Cleanliness, probably a 3, maybe a 2 if they're being harsh. Use of space, probably a 2 if they're being harsh, maybe a 3. Musicality, you definitely did better than round 1, I think. So I think maybe you got probably a 7 on that one. 8 if they're being nice, 6 if they're being critical. And then, yeah, no, I'll go more into it later. That's just kind of a loose estimate of how I would give you the first judgment for that video. But yeah, no, overall great video. I'm excited to watch it again and then to really dissect and go into it. Okay, cool. So that first intention we talked about, those like wacky tricks in that intro and the outro. So let's take a look at them real fast right here. I'm gonna just play the show for a bit. Okay. So he's pouring out the smoke. You can kind of see the smoke, but it is a little not. So second intention was that this was a comp show. So let's look at the comp that it's for. The GFC, Gloving for Charity online tournament. Let's look at the rules. Let's look at the card. So on the bottom there, it says that glovers are allowed to add introductions, audio overlays, color correction, or team sponsor logos and watermarks only. Performances may not be edited with effects. So super glad that they let you get away with that. Yeah, just kind of snuck it in there at the end and at the beginning, but it didn't impact your overall performance. It was just great as a video thing, you know? So I'm glad that they didn't DQ you for something that small or that fun as well. Since that's the kind of stuff that I want to see from gloving and gloving content in the future, you know what I mean? So keep it up. So it says 48 glovers begin in open rounds 1 and 2. The glovers are split into groups of 12, and 3 from each group move on to the playoffs, which is round 3. So since that was your open round 2, you have to mix the score from that one and your first one. And then you can also cleanliness out of 5, measurement of kinetic animation and projections of illusion displayed by the performer, use of space out of 5. We got how well did they transition from different sizes of space used or different areas used, which includes depth of field. Difficulty of concepts out of 10, which is how much
Did the glover's moves require finger independence, body, hand control, or complex timing and coordination? Next, on the trait side, we got delivery out of 5, which is rating the digestibility and placement of power moves with relevance to an overall story. We've got showmanship, which is the Glover's portrayal of their persona through their performance, the ability to add nuance with commonplace moves that create a recognizable signature. We have musicality out of 10, which is measurement of understanding and awareness of the song. Examines the performer's ability to portray the song through mood, cleanliness, use of space, delivery, and showmanship. All those 4 are only out of 5. So the most important things to really make sure that you have in your show is the musicality and the difficulty of concepts. If you make sure that those are the things that you focus on, you're gonna do pretty well. And then from there, it'll just keep adding up. But that's just in general. Let's get into more metagaming of this now. Okay, so now it's time for the fun part. Let's look at how your official judges scored it from your round 1 to your round 2, and we'll kind of see how I scored it as well. Since every judge is a little different, you want to play it towards the card, definitely, but you also need to know who your judge is and why they would judge that way to really shape your show into something that you can get the most points out of. So let's go into your judges after in a little bit. First, let's take a look at how they judged you here and how they and the scores that they gave you. Pretty spot on, man. You got a 30 for this second round. You got a 28 for the first round. Pretty dank, man. You got a 5, 3, 8, 4, 4, 6, which means maxed out cleanliness. You got a so-so use of space. You got a good difficulty. Delivery, showmanship, solid but not perfect. Musicality, not the best. But when you compare it to what you did on the first round, you only got a 3, 4, 8, 4, 3, 6, which means that you improved on your cleanliness. You gave 1 point to use of space, but you did gain a point in showmanship. So overall, generally better, 28 to 30, you know what I mean? And also, that got you good enough to move on with Flack and Stack and Elixir into that redemption round, which was super hype. I would highly recommend you guys to watch that. That whole video where they're going down the list of all 3 of them. So to move on from here, before we go into how the official judges scored and how we can predict them to score in a future round, which sadly, spoiler alert, it was only for the open, but we can still kind of predict and metagame how to get into a groove on how to play it to the judges' possible biases about how they're going to look at the card. And for an example of that, let's look at how I scored you. So round 1, I gave you a 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, for a total of 16 points. So sorry, I'm a little harsh, but yeah, no, you definitely stepped it up on the round 2. I gave you a 3, 4, 7, 4, 4, 7, so a total of 29. And so overall, your score would have been out of 80, you got 45 from me. So that's out of half. I mean, that's more than half. So that you did pretty good then. You know what I mean? You did pretty good. But yeah, so you can kind of use these and use how you would expect me to see the card to kind of play to how you would want your future show to be if I was your judge. Because I'm not, let's look at who was. Okay, so just a refresher again, your judge was Recursion, and he was looking at your cleanliness, use of space, and difficulty. So when you're thinking about how you want to formulate your show and how you want to hit the scorecard for the judge, you have to think, how is this judge going to score these things? So obviously they have a definition to them. You can always look more into who that judge is. So this is Recursion, his Facebook page right over here. He's pretty great. He is the man, the meme, the legend himself. If I recall correctly, his oldest YouTube video was on January 28th. I believe it was 2019. So he's actually he's a younger Glover within the community, but his understanding is so vast. He's on teams like CLT, Meow, ECL, POT, ISO, CC, and FAR. So, you know, my teammate, man, gotta rep support the team. So from what I noticed, people like him for his intentions and insight, as well as his cleanliness. To my knowledge, he has no known judging prior to this season of GFC. But he's from Seattle, Washington. I pulled up a video so we can kind of see how his style is, and then we can see what he teaches on YouGotMoves.com, because he's one of the teachers as well. So we can kind of extrapolate what he's going to be looking for within these 3 categories. So let's watch that show real fast. Bam! And just sit down on my amazing chair. I love this part. This part's so good. All of it's so good. That part's so hype. Dude, yeah. And then it just gets better. I love this part. He just shakes his head no and walks away. Oh, and then it gets hype again. Just wait for it, just wait for it. Almost there, almost there. Oh, it's coming, it's coming. Oh man, it's about to get hype. It's gonna get hype. Yeah, right here, right here. And then this part, have people glued. Yeah, you gotta love it, you gotta love it. Oh, I think my favorite part's coming up soon. Yep, it's coming up soon, it's coming up soon. Yep, here it is, here it is. Yeah, man, it's so good. So that was a show from your judge, and you can kind of see some gears turning, right? How he views Clint, or also just keep in mind that was back in 2019. I believe it said December 12th, 2019, and that was a pit battle versus Nemo Lumen. I don't exactly recall the what happened in that match. I believe Recursion was the victor, but I can't say for sure. Either way, let's look more into Recursion as a teacher. So as a coach, his lessons are fixed 45s. Oh my gosh, 45 minutes on different forms, ways, and applications of the 45-degree angle within the gloving grid oddities, which is, he says, I like to make and find really weird shapes and grids to play with. Ask me about this in my open consults. In addition to structured lessons, you are also welcome to use this time with your coach to just pick their brain or ask questions about a specific topic of your choosing. We call this an open consult. Classes with Recursion can be 30, 45, 60, or 90 minutes. So, what that says about him and about how we can assume his judging to be, or I'm sorry, his scoring to be within this judging, right, is his focus on cleanliness is going to be about isolations. And it's going to be about, because he says, I like to make and find really weird shapes and grids to play with. So he's focusing a lot on what grids you're using, what subsets of the grid that you're on, and really focusing with, playing around with, and how you transition into and out of them. So that also works with your use of space. And the use of space, he has a class on fixed 45s. You saw how he used space in his pit battle. He was very, very structured, very within the limitations of the camera. So it looks like you're gonna have a bad time if you continuously leave frame, or if you're like not intentionally like on point with your camera. Looks like you're gonna lose cleanliness, use of space, difficulty of concepts. Since he says that he likes it to make and find really weird shapes and grids to play with, he's going to be really harsh on difficulty of concepts. And he was. I believe he gave you an 8 though, so that was nice. That was pretty dope. Let's see. Where is their score? Yeah. So he gave you an 8 both times. Obviously, you saw him do clusters in his pit battle, so he understands the use of clusters and that really small microgrid and that larger, that medium-sized grid. And he also used some really nice tuts in that battle. So you can see that he understands how that larger and mid-sized grid can work in favor of a light show. That was a finger show, but still, you have to think of how he would view a light show and how he would score that. But yeah, so that's Recursion. Now let's look over at the trait side. Moving on to the trait side, we got delivery, showmanship, and musicality, 5, 5, 10. And your judge was Starlight. So just kind of looking at a rundown. She is the captain and creator of LLB, captain of Move On Beats, and a coach on You Got Moves. So let's kind of break down how you think she would score these. Some other info is from Colorado. I believe her oldest YouTube video was from 2015. She was a sponsor from Amazing Lights, I think around that time. I think it was like 2015, 2016 is when she became a sponsor for them. And let's go the opposite way this time. Let's look at what she teaches first. So improvised musicality, 90 minutes dedicated to the structure of music and how to use it to improve anticipation and general expression of the song, stage presence, and showmanship. She has 3 versions of that class. First is an intro, which is 30 minutes of foundation and drills. Second is an intermediate 4th wall, 60-minute about how to connect with your audience. And the third is character creation, which is commanding the attention of your audience and growing more comfortable in your own skin in the process. How might she see showmanship, musicality? How strict is she going to be on scoring them? Especially with this description of delivery, placement of power moves with relevance to an overall story. She has a class that's 90 minutes dedicated to the structure of music. So like, if you're thinking about it, she definitely sees multiple ways to view musicality. So any style, and I believe I mentioned she started back in like 2015, maybe even earlier. That's just her earliest video. So she definitely understands, like, you know, she's a seasoned glover, right? Like, I don't think she would have any bias about any particular style or nothing. This is one of the comps that she threw, which was called the harmonic convergence. She threw that with her team LLB. I wanted to go over one of these videos because this is a great demonstration of how she judges. So this is the round 1 from Liquid, Demon of Vaatu. So let's watch this and then we can kind of see how she used her scorecard, which is phrased a little differently. It's got different focus points because of how her comp, the harmonic convergence, was made. I'll sit down. Let's watch this. Okay, so even though that was Liquid, that wasn't her. Now let's look at how she scored it. So that was round 1, Demon of Vaatu. Let's go down to him. Liquid. So how she scored him. Total was out of 35. She had a light bending, storytelling, stage presence, musicality, pacing, complexity, cleanliness, transition, user space. So we'll focus on this part. Storytelling, she gave him a 4 out of 5. Stage presence, she gave him a 4 out of 5. And musicality, she gave him a 3 out of 5. Let me make sure I have that in frame. Yeah, there we go. And then you can also kind of compare it to how her other teammates from LOB scored. And you can also, I'll put this in every link that I go past and go through is going to be in the description below, or I'm going to try to be able to fit them all. Other than that, you can always ask me for the link for this if you wanted to view any of the other videos, so you can kind of make comparisons as well, and if you just wanted to watch some older shows too. But yeah, so musicality, showmanship. Those are kind of like the musicality and the storytelling. Even pacing. Pacing is kind of similar to the delivery part. She gave him a 4 out of 5. So kind of comparing that show to this card and those cards together, you can kind of see that she's a little lenient. She's kind of lenient, but she is really strict on musicality. Did do some moves that weren't as prime or weren't as in time, and from that he went from a possible 5 all the way down to a 3. So you can also kind of keep things like that in mind, like, oh, okay, if I'm gonna, how risky am I gonna be with my moves? Because you need to try to find that balance of difficulty and musicality. One more thing before we get to song choice, and that is, let's watch a video of hers competing. That way you can kind of cement that idea of, oh, okay, so this is how she herself gloves competitively. This might be some of the elements that she's looking for when she's scoring. So let's go. So that was a Starlight show. That was her show versus Team Money from the top 8 of the open bracket on Lights On. So that was about 2017, it said, and if I recall correctly, she actually lost that match, but I do believe that was a max in musicality and also a max in pacing and storytelling. So she had, Obviously, you saw the things that she kind of sacrificed so that she could focus and hone in more on other things. But no, overall, her show was she would have scored amazingly on this card with the traits, right? The digestibility of her power moves and relevance to the overall story. She definitely had a story going on. Her character was, very, very there, and the musicality, obviously, she move on beat. But yeah, so going back to how she scored you round 1 and 2, so she gave you a 4-4-6, 4-3-6. Biggest thing it would be to just add more, to hone in more on the musicality aspect. It does look like you sacrificed some musicality for the difficulty because you have that 6 and that 8, but also keep in mind your difficulty is at an 8. So if you continue to do moves, and if you have those like power moves, boom, easy. Just make sure that they're placed in they're placed well for the story, and that they're digestible. It's just like one punchline coming in at a time. You can always do that. I believe it's out of that 4 count, just that 1, 2, 3, boom, power move. Depending on which song you're using, of course. The way that you used Illusion looks like you almost had perfect delivery and almost perfect showmanship. But yeah, no. So definitely, I would recommend adding some more different variations of musicality into that, because even then, the way that the difficulty of concepts is written, you might actually get more points for difficulty as well. So, it's not necessarily a trade-off, but keep up your volition, man. You did pretty well over here, and then I believe, or at the time of this scoring, only the redemption round happened. I don't have your results for the round 3, sadly, but either way, it's gonna be super hype. I'm a little sad that I didn't get to put this out beforehand, but hey, anyone watching, this is kind of another way to play the card, to kind of see to kind of judge how your judge is going to judge. So let's move on to the song. So to our next fun part right here, going into that deep dive into your show. So I have my notes all up in the corner over here, just about things that I'm looking for within a show. I already did my first impressions part, but we're gonna go real deep into it. So just kind of overall what I am looking for. First off, let's check out this first frame. I'm going to move it back just to make sure we are on, in fact, the first frame. Right before we press play, this is what we see. So you always want your first frame to be it sets up everything. It sets up everything. So let's look at professionalism. Let's look at your lighting. Lighting is pretty nice, although it's really in that one corner, and then the rest of it is dark. I get that you're going for that silhouette look for your character, and if the silhouette definitely pops out, especially on that one side, but on the other side, it might be a little too dark. It's kind of a little too dark. But I do understand what you are going for. Secondly, let's look at so you yourself are in the middle of the frame. That's great. But your hand isn't necessarily in the middle of the frame. It's the way that it's curved. You have the three that are really in, but you do have that one that's kind of out, and then your thumb isn't straight either. And it doesn't look like that's necessarily intentional. Like, if you explain it more throughout the show, like, oh yeah, I use that angle, I use this plane diagonally, and I use that plane diagonally, then that'd be really nice. But, that's what I see. That's what I see you setting up right here in that first frame. I also see contrast. You can clearly see the like blue purple. You can already tell it's really flashy, and you want it to be really flashy because you yourself are silhouetted. But it's also kind of dim, and so that sets up that you're going to do a kind of show that's more mesmerizing. Your character is going to be pretty dark, and your thumb real bright green, but not like very luminescent, so as to not showcase your face yet. So that's kind of a nice nod towards that right direction there for your character. I'm gonna zoom a little bit past here so that we can see the first like move that happens. Okay, first move that happens, you move your hand a little bit to the side, bam, light turns on. Already that tells me you're an out of the box kind of person, right? Like, the way that you're dressed really helps your character. The jacket, and especially the hood. The hood makes it more sinister. You did mention that there's an Easter egg, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but it is pretty great. It's very say Sike right now. Matches your character in a really nice, pleasant, unexpected way. So continuing on, we have that Inova light, which is considerably larger than the other chips that you have, and so we already see that contrast, but it matches the color of your fingers. It contrasts your thumb. So let's go on to see how that setup pays off. Yeah, no, you can already see your pointer is real blinky. I don't know if that was intentional to have only your pointer be the one that's kind of out, so that you can see the hand lights compared to the thumb light. If it was intentional, then okay, pretty smooth. If it wasn't intentional, then that wasn't very clean. It's not the best way to showcase the like right angles, but I get what you're going for, and I personally like it. Actually, no, I think I would have preferred your pointer to be a bit more in, but I don't think it could be if you're pressing the light down. So maybe your other fingers should have been more relaxed and more out, so that they're all lined up in the same way. Let's see if that does happen. It doesn't happen. And then boom, you really show your other hand there. And right now I kind of wish that your thumbs and your fingers were the same green, because the contrast of pouring the purple light into your hand would be really nice. Although I do get why you chose the blue purple, because that does look pretty dope. Maybe it's just one of those things that don't translate really well from in person to on the camera, because the camera does miss things. That's what color correction is for. And I mean, it looks like it looks like you kind of tweaked the lighting. I'm not sure if you actually did, but it looks like you might have tweaked the lighting. And then to continue in, so you have that smoke effect that I already talked about earlier. Boom, storyline. love it. I love this part, amazing for your story, and then it just gets better. I might have actually enjoyed if you just started, if you just started here, you know? But I do get why you needed that intro to kind of build up the tension. You can't just like hop into it, hi, I'm here, right? Although sometimes you can. Let's keep going further on. And also this part isn't as clean, but when you poured it, the hand shape that you made and everything around that was quite nice, quite clean, I would say. That is delivery max, right, in my opinion. And then right here, the way that they illuminate you is really nice, although, like, okay, I'm gonna zoom a little bit around. The way that you're using the grid isn't as prime with your hands. Like I get that you have one in front of the other, right? Because that's how it happens, right? That's the boom. And that you're trying to, so right here, you have that layered when they're going down. You go off to your left, and then you're centered. You make the head circle. The head circle is nice. And it kind of looked like you were going for symmetry, but it doesn't feel like you aced the symmetry part. I'm not sure exactly how you could have done it better, but yeah, no, the way that you did it is solid. Nothing against it. Only just simply ideas about how you have to really pay attention to how your camera catches the separation of your hands if you want it to feel symmetrical. Because and then the way that it's going down, the way that your fingers are curled are actually pretty on point though. Just the protrusion of the pointers. That's difficult to talk about because you are holding down the inovas, so it really is a give and take. You know what I mean? Okay, let's go to, and then I'm just gonna play this part normally. Beautiful thread, beautiful thread. I love threads. I am one with the thread, and the thread is with me. You are one with the thread, and the thread is with you. But, well, let's see, let's keep going. Okay, so I feel like recursion might have went, let's look at your score too. So let's compare this to how you scored. So he gave you a 5 in cleanliness, 3 in use of space. I agree, that was very clean, super clean. The grid that you were using, very pronounced. The delivery of it and the showmanship of it, so she gave you 4s for those. The musicality, she gave you a 6. So I kind of get that, but you also have to think about the rest of the show, so I'll play a little bit more. I don't feel like there's any filler here. I feel like it's very intentional, like you planned to hit that liquid straight into that finger roll, and the way that you used space was, I think the way that you used space was really smooth. That looked a little too clunky. That was a little clunky. clean but clunky. I believe in my first impressions, I mentioned that that's possibly my favorite use of clusters from you. Let's look back and kind of see so you introduced the theme of clustering with that with the digital folds that you did, and then you used this. So even though I don't necessarily approve of how you transitioned with that, I do still agree with my first impression that that cluster part was my favorite cluster from you, because of how it felt like a middle part that tied in from that little setup that you did with the digital fold. So yeah, no, that was smooth, that was good. But yeah, no, the transition part, I mean, not bad, but it is something that I feel like you can work on. This part is great though, I love this part. And then the way that you transitioned into maybe that's why she gave you a 4 in delivery actually. Because it's not necessarily perfect. There's opportunities to improve. That right there, it very much marks that you're nearing the end. Let me go back over here. So confrontation already happened. Now you're at that kind of falling action, right? I'll go back to my notes. So the setup, the intro, great. Confrontation, great. So this is that resolution part right here, and you can feel it with the way that you used speed. And I'm actually a little surprised that Recursion gave you a max for cleanliness. I think I had knocked you down to a 3 only because of how I feel like you used the isolation there. It didn't feel like you it felt like you could have done something a little bit more different, or maybe it just didn't feel as still. Maybe I'm just moving around too much. But yeah, there's always more opportunities. And then the way that you kind of, got into that, I feel like it's something that will happen over time, where you just your wrists, or maybe it's your shoulders, I'm not exactly sure which part, just didn't feel right. But it was an amazing setup into that. Amazing setup into that. Because let's rewind a bit. I'm gonna zoom back. The way that you're using the space in front of you is very it's very sorcerer-esque, right? You're using a lot of it's really in your face at that part, and then you just cover and disappear. That was great. That was great. Resolution overall. Once again, I think that's why she might have knocked you down for delivery, though. When you got to the transitions into that part, like right here. Kind of looking at it back now as well, that might have been why she knocked you down with the musicality as well. Because I believe I gave you a 7, she gave you a 6 for the official score. There were moments that didn't exactly feel like they were emphasizing the music. I'm not sure if you could have went faster or slower, or if you could have just used your wrists to really, or your body movement to really articulate that better. But yeah, no, I think it's this part from here to the end that really might have detrimented your score on the traits end. But the ending was pretty great. And the way that you had, you know, the space that you used, and then the way that you opened it up and, you know, you edited to where the smoke had and then you yourself poofed. That was great. That was amazing. I love that. That's kind of stuff that I really want to see more of in light shows. Just that concept editing, that theme that you continued from the beginning to the end. But yeah, so this is that deeper dive. And then now I'm just gonna play your show one more time, and don't forget that I will have, or I'll try to have all these links that I've used in the description below, and also if they don't fit, you can always just hit me up and be like, hey, what was that thing here, then, where? And then I'll definitely send it to you. If you're Sike or if you're anybody, don't be afraid to hit me up and be like, hey, what was that link to that thing? And then so that was the end to your deeper dive. I hope we really accomplished, and I hope that this is still relevant and useful, even though the redemption already happened. Round 3 already got submitted. But hey, you know, this is also for the future. This is something for anyone who really wants to do a competition can really look at and be like, hey, these are my judges. This is kind of a mentality that they might have. So I hope that this is useful for anybody, and don't be afraid to hit me up if you have any questions. If you want the links that I've mentioned in this video that I've had around, if they don't fit in the description, you can definitely hit me up and I'll send you a link to one of the things that I was looking through. And you can always just rewatch this and like find the video if it's like recursion or starlight part. Other than that, this was the feedback session for Sike GFC Open Round 2. I hope you were as hyped as I was to watch all through that, and I'm super hyped to get to do this again. So I'll see you guys next time. Shoots.
This is also an illusion.